Hey everyone, quick heads up that we're going to be discussing themes that may be distressing for some of our listeners, including child abuse, sexual assault, homophobia and suicide. If these are triggering for you or you experience any distress while listening to this, crisis support is always available through Lifeline Australia 13 11 14. Calls to create a new Australian identity after long debate over religious freedom in Australia.
It's black, it's white, it's brown, it prays in a church, it prays in a mosque, prays in a shrine, a synagogue, in a hall, or on a surfboard just behind the brakes. It's men, it's women, it's straight, it's gay, it's trans, it's intersex, it's the whole bloody lot.
And after all that debate, the federal government's religious discrimination bill passes the lower house but stalls at the next step. Gold for Australia at the Winter Olympics. Jakarra Anthony wins the country's 6th ever gold medal at the event, taking out the women's freestyle moguls in Beijing. And name a more iconic duo. We'll wait.
I don't feel I really have to introduce Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame. Such has been their impact on the national stage.
Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins take on the PM again. I'm Georgie Tunny.
And I'm James Law.
And this is Flash Drive. Fun theme song. Welcome to Flash Drive, a wrap-up of the week that was and news for your Friday commute, the cliff notes, the cheat sheet, all you need to know, basically, if you will. What a week, J-Lo.
It has been. Have you been getting into the Winter Olympics? I know you love your sport.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I have. There has been so much, but really for the Winter Olympics, I find it just so mesmerising because it just absolutely bamboozles me how any of these events work. I've been watching the figure skating non-stop. I've been watching the snowboard cross non-stop, the half pipe, the luge. And I just have one question. Can you snow, J-Law? Can you snow? Can you ski even?
Can I snow?
I'm like, what is snow? Can you tell she's from Brisbane?
I knew that's what you meant though. I didn't have any follow-up questions. I have skied before, but with someone to teach me, and it was me doing it real slow and then 8-year-olds zooming past me. So I'm at that level.
Well, I'm terrified of chairlifts, so that's
really?
the main thing.
So
oh my gosh, yes.
You haven't had a go?
No, never. I've seen snow once in my life when I was traveling through Europe in winter, but didn't go anywhere near a ski slopes. And then over this past summer, I went and climbed Mount Kosciuszko and we took the chairlift, so we cheated. We didn't climb the whole mountain, obviously. But we got the chairlift and I realised I'd never actually been on one. And it was terrifying. I was so scared and I thought, wow, if this is the first hurdle between me and winning a Winter Olympic gold medal, I may have set the bar too high.
That's the only reason. Only reason you don't have the gold.
Yeah. That's it. Maybe I'll settle for a bronze eventually.
Have there been any highlights from the games so far for you?
Oh, Jakarra Anthony's performance, amazing in the freestyle women's moguls, because actually a couple of days before she won gold, I saw a video of her on social media and it was her training and she's just on a trampoline in the backyard, jumping in that same movement as when you think that she's ruptured multiple ACLs when they're going down the moguls. I don't know how it quite works.
Oh, yeah, with your knees going.
With the knees going absolutely everywhere. And it was just incredible how her core strength, the top half of her body did not move. She's on a trampoline, bottom half going crazy everywhere, top half does not move. And I thought, this gal could win gold. And then she did. And it was so exciting because Australia, we're used to winning so many medals at Olympics and Paralympics, but really when we say the Olympics, we mean the Summer Olympics. This was just our 6th gold medal that we've ever won at a Winter Olympics. Yeah, so impressive. So Jakarra Anthony, we love you here on Flash Drive. Thank you for all of your efforts. And look, we will be diving into a full analysis of another explosive National Press Club with Grace Tame and Brittany Higgins. But before we get into that, let's have a look at what else has been making news this week. And we saw the Prime Minister, a win of sorts for him this week. His promised religious discrimination bill passed the lower house. However, it passed with amendments after 5 Liberal MPs crossed the floor. J-Law, first off, what is crossing the floor?
Right. Well, this is it's the old school tradition where if you're going to vote, you actually have to literally stand on the other side of the floor to, make your vote count. So what they did is they went to the other side of the chamber, and that is the way they get counted. So really it's a way to vote against your own government, and that's what 5 of them did. So it's a big move. I mean, within the Liberal Party, it's probably a bit less controversial than if you were to do it from Labor, because, you know, the Liberal Party is the party of freedom of speech and like freedom from rules and that kind of stuff. So I think it's a bit more acceptable to make that kind of conscience vote, but still it was a blow for ScoMo.
So it is a bad look technically, or it can be perceived as a bad look by voters looking in, you know, outside looking in, or is it more so perceived that way for the party itself, and they're now like looking at people like Trent Zimmerman, Bridget Archer being like traitors?
Well, I think it shows disunity. I think that's the main problem for the Prime Minister. It shows that he had a strategy about how he wanted this bill to be passed, and they've actually had to, you know, get on board with amendments and that sort of stuff, which even up to now, ScoMo still wants it in the pure form of the bill that he wanted. But yeah, they've kind of scuppered that plan. So I think that's the main problem about it. It looks messy as. So
messy. And look, it really has been such a contentious issue for so many people this week, a really, really tough one and a traumatising time for people in the LGBTQIA plus community especially. We now know the bill was changed to provide greater protections to trans students, and that would have stemmed probably from speeches like this on Tuesday night from federal Labor frontbencher Stephen Jones.
Last week, my family said farewell to my nephew Ollie. He was just 15 when he took his own life. No mother or father should have to endure this sight. No brother should have to clean up afterwards.
That was quite a moment, wasn't it? I know that it sort of affected you, right? That speech.
It really, really did. I have so many friends part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and this speech for me was a moment of humanity, I think. I think that Stephen Jones was able to sum up very, very eloquently what a lot of people in that community are feeling, what a lot of family members from people in that community are feeling, and also just humanising it, and I hate this word, but normalising it, getting stories like that, which really is the typical Australian family these days, and getting those stories into public discourse, public commentary, because, I mean, I know far more families really emerging these days that have either children who are gay or children who may identify as trans, children who don't identify with a gender at all, which is what Mr. Jones was saying about his own boy in that speech too. And I just think it was such a wonderful moment in a really, really, really difficult week for so many people.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, ultimately it seems most likely that this is not going to be able to get done by the election now, because the government has decided to delay.
This is interesting. So we had like a 10-hour debate, right? That was in the House of Representatives, so the lower house, trying to debate and get these amendments through for the religious discrimination bill. They did pass it in that new form. It's gone to the Senate, but now the latest news is that the Senate's like, oh, we probably won't get to that.
Yeah. And this is because the government has essentially decided to delay it, because I think that they really want this more pure version, pure in their eyes, of this bill, the one that they originally put up, but now it's sort of been amended a fair bit and it's moved away from what they want. So they've decided just to kind of put it on ice. It looks like there's just not enough time to get it through, given there's only a couple of Senate sitting days left. So I think that the government will not be able to strike this up as a win for them before the election.
Do you think, though, that their voter base and potentially swing voters would care? Do they care about election promises not being fulfilled?
I think they do. I'm not sure that this one is like the sort of policy that will decide an election by any means, but it does speak to like a pretty strong current within the coalition voting bloc. People who care about freedom of religion, they this is kind of like a response to the gay marriage vote that happened before. So it's sort of like there is a section of their voters who want this to be passed in the name of freedom. But yeah, it looks like it's not going to happen. So they'll probably just continue to campaign on it and say this is something we stand behind, but that Labor has stood in the way.
So a win, but maybe more of a loss to the coalition in the long run.
I think so, yeah.
Well, another potential hit we saw again this week for the coalition, the National Press Club, 2 incredible addresses, One from the 2021 Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, another from former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins. They teamed up to present so powerfully. The two women spoke for 35 minutes. They then answered questions for another 35 minutes, and they raised about 1,000,001 issues for the Australian government, in particular the Coalition and the Prime Minister.
Is there anything that you specifically think Anthony Albanese would do better?
All Anthony would have to do is none of the things that Scott's done.
Yikes. J-Lo, before we get into this discussion proper, and we can take it so many ways, and I hope that we do, but I want to get your thoughts on what these two women represent to you. When you see them, what do you feel?
I think that they're very brave women. I think they're women who haven't necessarily wanted to become symbols for what is becoming a movement, but they have. And they've both, I think, been willing to take this on, understand that they have these platforms and use them to the best of their abilities. They're both very eloquent women. I think Brittany Higgins was especially impressive with her speech. And even in the question and answers, I thought that she was very easy to understand and made very powerful points.
Very polished.
Very polished, yeah. I mean, don't forget, she sort of had this communications background. It showed. But yeah, I mostly just think that they're very brave, fierce women.
And there was legitimate news lines as well that came from both of them. If we start with Brittany Higgins, she was really critical of the national plans that are already in place in Australia about domestic violence, sexual violence, workplace misbehaviour. She wants an overhaul of that. She was so firm in saying that she wants actions taken. She's sick of hearing just words. And as for Grace Tame, the moment that I was sitting there and watching it, and I was watching it in the newsroom downstairs, and I looked around because my mouth just dropped open because she had this absolute bombshell where she was like, guys, I'm just reminding you all, I've got nothing to lose, so brace yourselves. And she received a phone call August 17 last year from an unnamed government-funded organisation basically telling her or warning her, threatening her in her words, Grace Tame's words, to stop criticising the Prime Minister or not to criticise the Prime Minister in any of her speeches or her next a speech before the Australia Day, the next Australian of the Year awards were announced. And I think that in the room at the time, everyone was kind of like, what? I'm sorry, what? What did you say? What did she say? And she was just so still eloquent, but so furious. I think that was the what I took away from her speaking yesterday was just this palpable fury. And when you know Grace Tame's full story, of course, you're going to have that. But that particular moment about that, and of course now, as we saw last week with everyone trying to figure out which MPs may or may not have sent certain text messages, everyone's trying to figure out who may or may not have called Grace Tame and threatened her like this. Do we have any update?
Well, look, the word is that it was the Australia Day Council, the people who put on the Australian of the Year events. She didn't name them,
no,
but subsequent reporting has made it clear that that's who she was talking to. The response from the council was quite telling. They said that they did not have conversations with her that were threatening. So they didn't say that, no, we didn't speak to her, it wasn't us. They said that if she's interpreted as threatening, then that's a misinterpretation. Yes. So once you sort of unpicked their statement, I think it is clear about who she was speaking. But, the government says that they want to try to, do an inquiry and get to the bottom of it. And Grace was like, no more inquiries. Just stop it. So I don't know. I feel like that moment where she was speaking about this threatening phone call and then, this happened in August. I feel like that probably is what might have teed up that moment where she gave the Prime Minister the side eye, those incredible pictures where she, pretty much made her opinions on ScoMo clear for the whole nation to see. I feel like those are probably related events now. Do you think?
I think, yes. She did make an interesting comment in the question and answer section at the National Press Club saying that she thought that the photo opportunity she thought had been, constructed by the media there as well. And she was pretty scathing at times in her review of the press and the media and the attention that she's copped over the last year as Australian of the Year. What do you think? Because, the attention's going to stay with her now. And she also alluded to the fact that, she's still getting trolled for... Oh, it makes me so uncomfortable to say, but like people online saying that she led her teacher on, who groomed her for so many years, raped her, abused her, and people can be like, I think last week she said that she got someone saying, "You're a horrible, horrible woman," referencing a reported text message exchange from Gladys Berejiklian and an unnamed cabinet minister in the Liberal Party. A horrible, horrible woman, and you led your teacher on. Like if someone like Grace Tame is still being able to be trolled like that, no wonder she's angry. No wonder she's pissed off.
Well, exactly. And I think that some of the quite practical ideas she's had have really been sidelined. Like I think that she has been trying to use her Australian of the Year platform for the past year to try to bring about change, but it's been too slow for these women. Like they kept talking about how they felt that politics in general was trying to push them aside, and that that I thought Brittany said something very interesting where she said that she felt like it had been dealt politically as a flare-up. That this is just women are rising up. We'll listen to them, placate them for a little while, and then hopefully it'll go away and we can go back to politics as usual. And I think that's what's spurring them on, that they're trying to capitalise on this moment and not let it just pass. And yeah, I can understand why they'd be angry when their ideas or their comments are being dismissed.
Well, that was something I also really, really liked about Brittany Higgins' speech, was that she turned the attention back on demanding action rather than words. And she also went back to a particular moment that happened last year, the start of last year, and Scott Morrison's reaction to her allegation, and saying that, he didn't really understand and couldn't empathise until he thought about it as a father, what it would mean to be allegedly raped in Parliament House, couldn't really fathom what that was like until he talked to Jenny, his wife, and she put it into some context and some perspective. And I thought Brittany Higgins' comments about that yesterday were very, very strong.
I didn't want his sympathy as a father. I wanted him to use his power as Prime Minister.
J-Law, how many more blows or hits can the coalition, and in particular the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, take at the moment? Regardless of what side of politics you're sitting on, it's been a pretty dismal fortnight for him from a public relations perspective. But are any of these blows actually meaningful? Will they stay with them as the election campaign continues? Look,
that comment from Brittany has reminded people of like one of ScoMo's great clangers.
Yeah.
There's been a few of them. That's one of them. The other one is "I don't hold a hose, mate." That one.
Mm-hmm. And then was washing someone's hair last week, and then people were harping back to that, which I thought was excellent comedic timing.
Right. So it's like all of these little things start to add up, and I think that when people are getting ready to vote, these are some of the little thoughts about him that may stick. So it's more in those little details that probably it could be damaging. I'm interested to get your view. Some people, some commentators have seen their press club addresses being, quite political, and that it was sort of a hit job on the coalition, some people have said. Do you think that that's a fair criticism?
Not really, because I think that you can't control people's political views, right? So if Brittany Higgins is a former Liberal staffer, and I think she was very, very measured. Grace Tame is not that, and she was, I think it's fair to say, not as measured in a lot of her answers. So I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, though. They're entitled to their opinions. And there were moments in the question and answer where I think that a lot of the journalists were asking objective questions. We had that one from the journalist asking okay, this is what you think about the Prime Minister, but in all honesty, what on earth could Anthony Albanese be doing better at the moment? And we had that great soundbite from Grace Tame being like, you know, he just has to do everything that Scott Morrison isn't doing, basically. But Brittany Higgins did take a little bit of a, you know, deeper dive into that and looked at it a lot more closely and was suggested things that, you know, the Liberal Party should be looking at quotas and stuff like that so that they can have a better relationship, dare I say, with women in their party. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's a wonderful space for journalists in particular. Again, I could be biased because I am a journalist. Having access to people who you may not necessarily get that one-on-one time with. And also I think that's telling because really the Q&A portion of the National Press Club, it may have done the coalition a favour in a way with its own voter base because Grace Tame is really divisive. Her speech was so powerful. It was so hard-hitting. It made me emotional because she is so strong. But she is divisive because she doesn't play nice. She comes across as quite rude sometimes, and we saw that in the Q&A portion of the National Press Club because the journalists were pretty much terrified to ask her any questions in case they were going to get their own heads bit off.
Yeah. And yeah, fair enough. You know, I do think though that like a lot of the commentary about it is, I do feel like if Grace Tame was a man and he was acting the same way as she does, people wouldn't react to it in the same way. They wouldn't see her as divisive or, you know, she might be seen as more cheeky.
Yep.
She's kind of cheeky, you know, and she's playing the media and she knows what she's doing. Yes. So I still think part of the people who react against her, I do think it's kind of gendered.
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Oh, I think so too. But I'm not, this is going to sound weird, I'm not mad at it. Like it's so unfortunate that Grace has to go through all that, and for her mental health and all of that, the toll that it's taking, I can only imagine. But she is the first woman that I have seen of recent memory who has really struck a chord with me because she has refused to act in a way that is seemingly, you know, befitting of a woman. And so that to me, I like that she is dividing people because you're getting to see that and we can have these discussions of, you know, people being like, oh, well, you know, she's a bit childish, she's this or that. Whereas I don't think we've ever had such loud debates about that before. So although it may, I hope it doesn't, but it may hurt her own, you know, mental health. For me, she really is that moment of like, of the now being like, oh, wow, I can act like that. I don't have to smile. Oh, wow. You thunk it, you know? So I'm not mad at that, the gendered reading, whereas usually I would be very pissed off about it.
Fair enough. Tell you what though, like National Press Club, best seats in town.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, and then you know who's coming up in a couple of weeks? Clive Palmer. That should be another big one.
So Clive Palmer. Interesting fun fact. When I started my journalism career, I was working, doing an internship. So it wasn't really my career. I was at uni. I was doing an internship with Clive Palmer and his party. And it was like in its initial stages, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, what kind of like inner workings can I learn? And they put me on trying to write a guest list for his Titanic number 2, like 2.0, like how he's going to relaunch the Titanic.
Yeah.
I was creating the guest list.
Wow.
I don't know if it ever got off the ground, like very much like the actual Titanic. I'm pretty sure it sunk, but like that was me.
Who was top of the guest list? Where was my invite?
I know. I was like looking back, I was like, I don't think I did a very good job. I don't know why they gave it to a uni student. I'm there looking up like, you know, Mayor of New York, contact.
Email.
Yeah. Barack Obama, phone number.
That's the reason it didn't get off the ground. Now we know.
Oh, God, yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Confessions. So, J-Law, that was our take on all of the news that was been happening this week. But what have people been really relating to and consuming on the platform Flash? And also, for people who may not know, can you just give us another quick little descriptor of what Flash is?
Oh, happy to. So Flash is the new platform that we both work for. It's a brand new streaming service dedicated to news. So it's got 25 plus different providers from around the world and Australia. And it's all about the news as you want it. You know, choose the news your way, when you want it, how you want it. So it's a really exciting new platform, only $8 a month to sign up. So check it out.
What should we be watching then this week?
Yeah, so we've got a new documentary that's really interesting. It's called Cryptopia. So it takes us inside what's known as the Fort Knox of Bitcoin, right? So it's this underground bunker in Switzerland where they hold the servers that have like billions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on them. So, you know, it's sort of a look inside that really shadowy world. For anyone who's like interested in Bitcoin, it's really interesting, yeah.
Just to provide a little update to our viewers of what J-Law was looking at when he was describing very eloquently, giving us the synopsis of Cryptopia, was my face just so confused by absolutely everything that he said. So I feel like I need to watch that because cryptocurrency is something that does not make sense to my brain. I have tried so many times to figure it out and I still don't understand just it at its basic level because it's not real.
I'm going to make you do like an explainer video on it.
No. Actually, on Flash, guys, we're really good at explainers.
We are.
So, yeah, actually, and he will make me do it. And then I can tell you exactly what I think of cryptocurrency and be all smart and everything.
Yeah, just give her an hour and she'll be an expert. That's how it works.
What have people been watching, though, like this week? Next week, they'll start watching Cryptopia? Cryptopia, but what did they watch this week?
Yeah, so I had a look back at some of the figures about what people have been watching. One of the biggest ones was the breaking news about when the borders will open and when we'll welcome back tourists. Yeah. So people were really interested in that.
February 21, team. February 21.
Get it in the diary. Bob Carr going on a tweet storm against Peter Dutton, accusing him of being the naughty text leaker. That got a lot of people going.
Actually, we did a really good explainer on exactly the ins and outs of, you know, who had skin in the game in that particular fight, Bob Carr versus Peter Dutton, and what that meant for the ongoing like texting scandal hitting the coalition.
I think it's fair to say that Bob Carr is kind of not the most in touch with the inner workings of the Liberal Party.
I feel like that's yes, I do. And also when he came out and he was just like, well, my source is a journalist, but then no journalist owned up to that. And I just feel that no journalist, like it's a big story. I feel like if it was a journalist being like, I might break that. Yeah. I might break that story. Yeah. I might not tell Bob Carr. I might break it myself.
Yeah, that was weird. Anyway, the sort of ongoing arguments over Justin Langer quitting as head coach of the Aussie cricket team, that's got a lot of people interested, as well as Facebook's share price disaster last week. That a lot of people wanted to figure out what was going on there. So, you know, that's the sort of stuff that's on the platform where if you're not sort of like super tuned into every single moment of the news,
like
cryptocurrency, come on to Flash and we'll sort of have the short version for you to get you up to date really fast.
Well, we're going to be back next week chatting all things news because as J-Law and I have been saying, we are news addicts. But before we go, I just want to have another quick reminder that if our chat today has raised any kind of issues for you, we got pretty heavy and into some heavy topics today, know that support is available through Lifeline Australia on 13 11 14. Or if you're not actually comfortable talking on the phone, which a lot of people aren't, they've actually just opened up a text service that you can reach at 0477 13 11 14. So 0477 13 11 14. J-Law, thanks.
Catch you next week.
See you next week.